Good afternoon, fellow patriots. This is Matt Shea, and welcome to Patriot Radio, broadcasting live from deep inside the heart of the future Liberty State. Sponsored once again by On Fire Ministries. In the legacy of Dr. Stan Monteith, bringing you the story behind the story and the news behind the news, where it's not about right or left, it's about right and wrong. It's about our hope not being in man, but in Jesus Christ. About not ending in prayer, but moving to action. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Father, deliver us from the evil one.
Welcome to Patriot Radio.
Every pedo in America, as Kash Patel was confirmed for the FBI today. We'll get to that here in a second. But today on Patriot Radio, looks like war is returning to the Middle East. Some horrible news. Just indescribable. And this is Islam. This is the jihadis that are doing this. We'll get to that here in a second. We have some breaking news as well. If Kash Patel does release the Epstein file, we will break in during this live broadcast on Patriot Radio. And also today, our guest is J. Michael Waller. He is a senior analyst for strategy for the Center for Security Policy on what happens next. And mark this day, because this is the one we've been waiting for. Kash Patel, now director of the FBI. What is not only going to be uncovered, but who is going to be held accountable? Here at Patriot Radio, we bring you information before everybody else so you and your family can be prepared for the times that are ahead, indeed the times that are already upon us. But no fear, we were made for this. And if you want to know ahead of time, we have a real-time intelligence analysis and breaking news link on Telegram, patriotradio.us/Telegram, so that you and your family can follow it. And all of the latest, and quite literally, we aggregate from hundreds of sources, and we do it 24/7 almost. And sometimes we need to get some sleep. But also, during this time, there's some things that are being exposed right now. I mean, every day I wake up, I'm like, I can't believe that's in the news. I mean, we're living a decade every day now. And for some, it is overwhelming. For some of you, you feel like you have been isolated, maybe even abandoned, or maybe lost in the mix, or you don't understand what's going on, but it just seems like it's too much for you and you need prayer. We want to be there for you. patriotradio.us/prayer. Go ahead and click on the QR code or go to the link, and we have a prayer team standing by to walk with you on your journey with Jesus Christ. And that brings us now to your wisdom from the Word for today. Genesis chapter 12, verse 3. And I will bless those who bless you. And the one who curses you, I will curse. And in you all the families of the earth will be blessed. Speaking of what became the nation Israel and what was later grafted in the nation of Christianity. So, today, why don't we bless Israel and speak a blessing tonight when you're gathered together with your family for prayer? A blessing over Israel and peace in Jerusalem, because it looks like they're headed back to war. Which brings us now to your daily intelligence brief. Coming to us from the globalist front.
The future is built by us. We have the means to make progress on the global agenda.
AI is perilously close to autonomous, unsupervised learning, where the requirement for human assistance is removed. What could go wrong with that? I mean, I think they want to build Skynet. Well, here's why. Now we got to be careful here. As we pare down the size and scope of government, some functions are going to be taken over by artificial intelligence. But there should always be a human being involved in the decisions of life and death. That decision needs to be made now. That needs to be addressed now, especially with the proliferation of drones. So this new artificial intelligence algorithm called torque clustering, inspired by how galaxies merge in space, can find patterns in data without human guidance and it has achieved a 97.7% accuracy across 1,000 diverse data sets. So we are moving now toward computer learning, but on an exponential scale. So let's recognize that AI is here, and let's have the hard conversations now. Which brings us to the China front. U.S. and Japanese troops trained for island defense amid severe security environment. U.S. and Japanese troops on Wednesday kicked off an exercise aimed at strengthening island defenses and amphibious capabilities amid regional security concerns. Every time that they've done these joint exercises, supplies have been moved in to the Pacific, to the various bases, some of which we hadn't used since World War II, and which are now being refurbished. So I suspect that it's more than just exercises and more than just deterrence. This is a prepositioning strategically to deter China. And unfortunately, probably be used in the event of war, because it does seem like China is headed down that road. Trump's quiet change on Taiwan, a shot across China's bow. Trump quietly tweaks official language on Taiwan, including on island's potential independence, sending a firm message to China. And the U.S. State Department removed a highly symbolic phrase from its routine update on Taiwan. Its previous briefing said, quote, "We do not support Taiwanese independence." That disappeared on February 13th. Yes, that is exactly what's happening. The adults are back in the room, and China needs to know the United States still is fighting communism. China and Russia are to deepen strategic coordination, according to Wang Yi. Yeah, because they've been working together since the Comintern in 1919, and this idea that somehow we can split Russia and China is absurd. That said, we should still talk to Russia. But I just think we're missing this. And in our conversation today with J. Michael Waller, we're going to bring this up a little bit. You don't have to be way on one side or way on another. Let's talk about some of the nuances here, and the fact that Putin right now is pursuing, and it's been very clearly articulated by the kind of strategic brain of Russia, Dugin, that they will pursue a strategic drawback of NATO so that they can rearm and take even more ground. This isn't me saying this. Was written in a bunch of different books, but including New Lives for Old by Anatoly Golitsyn. So we are in a place right now where we don't just all of a sudden think Russia is our friend. They're pursuing a strategic course, and frankly, they're being very successful at it. Which brings us to a very disturbing Middle East front. The following video may be disturbing. So if you have younger children, please take them out of the room. But I believe this video, rightfully so, according to open source intel, will probably force Israel back to war. Even the United Nations condemned Hamas today as they paraded the bodies of two babies in coffins be handed over to Israeli authorities. We're going to get to what actually happened here in a second, but if we could roll that clip. I want everybody to take a long, hard look at that. That is jihadis. And by the way, the little scarves on their heads tell that that's from different factions. So this isn't just one extreme local faction or something. This is what the Palestinians believe in. Absolutely one of the most atrocious things I have ever seen in my entire life. And they deserve everything that's coming to them very soon. And that brings us to the next piece here. Middle East nations to huddle over Gaza. The leaders of Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Jordan, and Gulf nations will meet in Riyadh Friday to continue working on a plan for Gaza after the war there concludes. Whatever they're going to meet about, I don't think it's going to go anywhere, and here's why. The United States is clearly flexing its muscle and backing Israel completely. CENTCOM conducts second bomber task force mission in 2 days. And what this is a gigantic show of force across the Middle East of U.S. power. But really, this has now devolved to some emotion, and rightfully so. Here is a picture of an Israeli soldier carrying one of those coffins today. And when they brought them back for autopsy, it appears very clear that the two babies were, in fact, murdered. And very interestingly, in a different twist, Shiri Bibas, the mom, is still missing. The body that was supposedly hers is not. Hamas sent back a random body as part of a bait and switch. Unbelievable. Now, that said, it does look like the hostages that are still alive, 6 of them that are supposed to be transferred on Saturday, will be brought back. But here, this Salafi jihadist organization, quote, Lords of the Desert, kidnapped and held Shiri, Ariel, and Gafir Bibas, and no question that the babies were murdered. But now the question is, what happened to her? What a horrible place for her family to be in. Also today in Israel, there were at least 3 explosions from 3 buses near Tel Aviv. In addition to that, 2 more suspected explosive devices were discovered on empty buses in Bat Ham and Holon. All the bus drivers in the Tel Aviv area have been instructed to stop and inspect their buses for bombs. They also halted travel across Israel. And there is a picture of the suspect right there that planted at least 2 or 3 of those bombs as well, which prompted Israel PM Bibi Netanyahu to instruct his military to carry out an operation in the West Bank, aka Samaria and Judea, and they are sending 3 battalions into Judea and Samaria. And it looks like they're going to systematically root out terrorist organizations there. So what had happened in Gaza is now moving to Judea and Samaria. In addition to that, the IDF confirms airstrikes on the Lebanon-Syria border targeting Hezbollah arms smuggling routes. And these are multiple strikes. But the point here, I think, is this: that Israel is preparing for a broader war again in the Middle East, and probably as soon as the live hostages come back. So it begs the question, will they wait for the rest? Because there's 33, supposedly anyway, live hostages still in Gaza. And 6, well, that leaves 27, right? So will they wait? Or have they had enough? We're about to see here in the next 48 to 72 hours. When we come back from the break, the Russia front, and some very, very good news here in the United States.
Attention business owners and entrepreneurs, Patriot TV is launching a brand new TV series showcasing American-made products, and your business could be featured. Whether you sell your products online on Etsy or Shopify and dream of reaching millions of viewers on smart TVs like Samsung, Sony, TCL, and LG, or apps like Roku, Android, and Apple TV, this is your chance. We're searching for U.S.-based businesses offering all types of products and services proudly made in the USA. If you've ever wanted to showcase your products on TV like QVC or the Home Shopping Network, now's your opportunity. Support our American economy, grow your business, and be seen by loyal Patriot viewers across the country. Know someone with a business or have a business yourself? Don't miss out. Contact us at supportingpatriots.com today. Be a guest on this new exciting TV series. Let's put your American-made products in the spotlight.
The new Supporting Patriots show on Patriot TV spotlights great Patriot-owned companies and introduces them to Patriot consumers, encouraging them to buy American-made. If you're an America-loving patriot that owns and operates his or her own business, and you have Made in America products or services, you're the perfect candidate to be interviewed on the Supporting Patriots show. If you'd like to be considered for an interview, email us at supportingpatriots@patriot.tv.
And we're back, the Middle East front. Sorry, that was the Russia front. But good job. There's so much going on right now. Wow. Here we go. The Telegraph reports that Keir Starmer is traveling to Washington to present Trump with a plan of deploying 30,000 European peacekeeping troops to Ukraine after a peace deal. If we can scroll down to the map right there, it does look like those bases that they're proposing are really toward the front line in Kyiv and in Dnipro. I don't know if the Russians are really going to go for that. We're going to see here very soon, but I want to dial some things back. First of all, the Russians were met with second by President Trump. He actually sent an envoy to meet with Zelensky first, get what their requirements are, and then he sent envoys to meet with the Russians to get their requirements. That's how good negotiators operate. People are like, oh, left Zelensky out of the talks. What are you talking about? They're getting each side alone, asking what their requirements are, and then bringing them together. The problem is, and why Trump is so furious, is because Zelensky apparently welched on an agreement to sign the mineral deal, or it didn't meet his standard. And so Trump was furious about that. We're going to get to that here in a second, but you're already seeing President Trump flexing muscle across the world. The United States is refusing to co-sponsor a draft UN General Assembly resolution by several European nations marking the third anniversary of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Yeah, because he's like, you really want to try and go it alone without the United States? The Trump administration, though, has given Ukraine an improved draft for a minerals agreement, according to FITEX News, after Zelensky infuriated President Trump by rejecting his initial offer. The Trump administration has given that approved draft and expects a response soon. Meanwhile, the Danish foreign minister says Europe must massively rearm, and NATO drills are occurring at the same time. Interestingly enough, we have a couple of things happening with J.D. Vance's speech. The arrest of Rose Doherty was made under the so-called buffer zone laws, which have recently gained scrutiny after being denounced by American Vice President J.D. Vance. Regardless of the media coverage, the policing of thought crimes and persecution of Christianity throughout Scotland, the British Isles, and almost all of Western Europe has remained a little discussed, yes, exceptionally grave concern for many years. This includes silent Christian prayer, even including praying inside one's home, has been relentlessly targeted by authorities. Now, I want everybody to hear that across Patriot Radio land, across the nation. We don't understand the level of persecution Christians have been under in Western Europe. And J.D. Vance is correct. We don't share those values of silencing Christians and persecuting Christians. We believe in freedom. And so calling out these beta males that are leading in Western Europe has really two key goals. The first is to actually shock them into action, and the second is to call out the hypocrisy that is so rampant in Europe. In addition, a Ukraine lawmaker confirms the U.S. has halted weapons deliveries to reason, stating the reason is unclear. Yeah, right. It's pretty clear exactly. J.D. Vance said this about Europe, quote, you don't have to have shared values, or you don't have shared values if you're jailing people for saying we should close down our border, or if you cancel elections, as in Romania. You don't have shared values if you're so afraid of your own people that you silence them and shut them up, end quote, calling them out. Which is why now Elon Musk is weighing into European politics, and he met with the leader of Spanish opposition. and said, quote, the time of socialist strongman Pedro Sanchez running Spain will soon come to an end. Very fascinating how this is all shaking down. And that brings us now to the National Front. Kash Patel was confirmed today as a director of the FBI. This is probably one of the most explosive and important confirmations in modern history. He immediately issued a statement. My mission as director is clear. Let good cops be cops and rebuild trust in the FBI. The weaponization, how about that, of our justice system has eroded public trust, but that ends today. He promised in an interview that he would release the Epstein files. We'll see if that actually happens. And we're waiting and watching right now, and we will break in if that does, in fact, occur. Also, in his book, he listed in Appendix B members of the executive branch deep state by name. I looked at this today and I was like, that is a great place to start. And I hope, in fact, he does. Trump's top prosecutor, Ed Martin, launches Operation Whirlwind to investigate Democrats for potentially threatening public officials, including Elon Musk. Senator Chuck Schumer and Representative Robert Garcia have already received inquiry letters over their remarks. More remarks from media personalities have come out as well, really clearly alluding to somebody trying to take out President Trump. Well, Kash Patel now is in charge, and I think that they are beginning to get nervous. RFK Jr.'s first meeting with the Center for Disease Control and Prevention Vaccine Advisory Committee has been rescheduled to next week, and they're going to be talking about things like the COVID vaccine and also Ebola vaccines as well. But it's interesting he delayed it, and I think here's the reason why, because over 500 COVID studies were retracted for unreliable information. Yeah, I think there needs to be more investigation into that before there's a real conversation. Also, the United States Navy has fired Captain Dave Snowden, the commanding officer of the USS Harry S. Truman, for a loss of confidence following the February 12th collision of the aircraft carrier with a Panamanian flag cargo ship. Captain Christopher Chowda Hill will temporarily command the Truman. And actually, I've seen him and followed some of his things on X, and he is a very good commander. So a good switch there being made, even though it's temporary. J.D. Vance on CPAC and the Trump doctrine on foreign policy, quote, Germany is not a friend if it imprisons people for, quote, mean tweets, end quote. It's about time that the Europeans are called on their lack of free speech. Here's the thing. Marxists and socialists always have to control speech because they know if the facts get out, they're going to lose the argument. Undercover video, Department of Education operating rogue sanctuary program for illegal aliens and hiding secrets from Doge on encrypted app. Wow. I wonder how this is going to go. What encrypted app are they using? Of course, they're using Signal. Amid conflicting reports about Pope Francis's condition, Italian Cardinal now says Pontiff may resign due to ill health. It does look like it's heading in that direction. Conservatives in the Catholic Church in the United States and abroad should be prepared so this time they don't get run over by the liberals and the woke faction of the Catholic Church. White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller scolds leftist media over Doge attacks and confirms that tariff revenue could replace the income tax. Here's the thing. The income tax originally was to pay for the debt, interest. We don't need that anymore. And all of the savings that's happening, Elon Musk has floated the idea of sending a check to Americans based on the savings. How about that? Could you imagine actually taxes being lowered in our lifetime and staying low? Now, I had the opportunity to actually not pay taxes for almost a year of my life when I was in a combat zone. And I saw how much I was actually paying in taxes, and it made me a Republican for life, as it should probably for most of you. Acting director for Social Security Administration steps down after blocking investigation into fraud scheme exposed by Doge. Yeah, because they don't want to be exposed. Now, I'm not about political parties if you actually know me. So I say that tongue in cheek about being a Republican for life. But could you imagine if you had $10,000 more a year? What kind of stimulus to the economy? And for those of us who don't even really think we're going to have Social Security and the fraud actually gets rooted out and we might actually have a robust future, maybe instead we get rid of, for some generations, the money being taken out of our paycheck and we actually can control it. We can invest it how we see fit. That'd be interesting. We get rid of this mindset that somehow government's going to invest our money better than we are. I think it's time to have a conversation. Because at least for my generation, we don't really think we're going to have Social Security. And definitely with fraud in it, we're not going to. So let's have that conversation now. One of the more underreported executive orders is this: ensuring lawful governance and implementing the President's Department of Government Efficiency deregulatory initiative. So this is what is giving Doge power now to begin deregulation all the way across the federal government. It is about time. Now, there's people talking about, well, how does a president have this? Look, at bureaucrats aren't in charge. Article 2 of the Constitution is clear that the executive power is invested in one man or woman, but so far man. One man has that power. And these rogue bureaucrats are going against the president. Yeah, they're absolutely right to fire them. Federal judge allows the Trump administration to continue mass layoffs of federal workers, despite the suit being brought by federal unions seeking to preserve union dues and bargaining power. Yeah, because they'll lose it. And Elon Musk commented on that, saying that shifting people from low to negative productivity jobs in the government sector to high productivity roles in the commercial sector will greatly improve the average standard of living. And he's absolutely right. It will not only increase the standard of living, it's going to improve our economy, and it's going to increase the velocity of money. And if you don't follow that, the velocity of money actually helps to defeat inflation, and well, it helps to grow our GDP because money isn't sitting idle. It's actually being productive. And whatever you may think on this subject, non-productive bureaucrats are not the answer to a robust economy or to turning this country around. According to a political report on Wednesday evening, New York Attorney General Letitia James is among those trying to recruit retiring New York City Council Speaker Adrian Adams to run for City Hall. The move comes as New York Governor Kathy Hochul is intimating that she may remove Mayor Eric Adams after the Department of Justice dismissed corruption charges. This is going to be wild to see how this one shakes out as the Democrats now fighting internally. They're in the political wilderness for at least 6 years, at least. Consuming meat is associated with lower levels of depression and anxiety than abstaining from meat. I'm going to read that one again for all of you steak lovers out there. The source is Critical Reviews in Food Science and Nutrition Journal. Consuming meat is associated with lower levels of depression and anxiety than abstaining from meat. In other words, barbecues make you happy. You heard it here first on Patriot Radio. The USA hockey team is in the building for the Four Nations Championship game. Going to be interesting to see if the national anthem is booed and what ensues right after that. It was great to see the fighting spirit of America returning the other night. And one of the, well, I guess it depends on what side you're on, joyous pictures that I've seen, if we could put this one up. This is the final shot of the office CNN used for many years in the Pentagon after Secretary Hegseth booted them out. Wow. Man, it looks like they trashed it a little bit, doesn't it? Anyway, that's the briefing. Remember, the antidote to dependency and socialism is to be a God-fearing, self-reliant, freedom-loving American. And when we come back from the break, J. Michael Waller.
Throughout history, the spirit of patriotism has prevailed. The battles may have changed, but the values remain the same. Today, in 2024, we find ourselves at a pivotal moment where the call for unity, freedom, and a better future echoes louder than ever. For more than 10 years, Patriot Mobile has been committed to supporting the values that make our nation great. With affordable plans and reliable nationwide coverage, Patriot Mobile is not just a wireless service. It's a call to action for those who believe in the American dream. Because this year is not just any year, it's the most important year since our nation's founding. Choose a wireless carrier that shares your values. Choose Patriot Mobile.
What do a neurosurgeon, a country artist, and a television and radio host have in common? They all saw the writing on the wall. Big banks sharing your financial information with big government. Join them as owners in Old Glory Bank, the pro-America online bank that protects your privacy, security, and liberty. Invest today at own.oldglorybank.com.
And we're back with our guest, J. Michael Waller. He's a senior analyst for strategy with the Center for Security Policy and author of the book, Big Intel. Really looking forward to today. Kash Patel confirmed as FBI director. Thanks for being on.
Oh, what a great day it is to be here.
Wow. So initial reactions. I know there was a lot of joy probably in your circles and mine too. So,
well, we thought he would get in, but it was a real nail biter because there were some Republicans you can't predict. And miraculously, Senator McConnell voted for Kash.
I know. Wild.
Yeah, it's shocking. And you had some real surprises. Senator Tom Tillis of North Carolina, he's on the Intelligence Committee. He's not a conservative, and he voted for Kash also. So he must have taken in something in the classified hearings, talking to Kash, that really, probably in the area of counterintelligence, that made him realize we got to put this guy in the FBI.
It must have been. And it's interesting, though, McConnell voted for him and then announced that he wasn't going to run for re-election. So I don't know how to take that exactly right now.
That's a deal.
Yeah, yes, we agree.
Close the deal right now. Yeah.
So what do you think Kash's next steps should be? I mean, aside from he could release Epstein files or whatever, what should his next steps truly be to rebuild trust in the FBI, but actually rebuild functionality in the FBI?
Well, he gave hints of his own personal ideas. Now, I don't know what the president precisely wants, but in his own personal ideas and personal statements, apart from saying he's going to turn FBI headquarters into a museum against the deep state. But on a practical level, he's really going to have to stop the bleeding inside the Bureau. He'll have to really take control of the huge, bloated, top-heavy leadership in the Bureau. Hopefully eliminate 90% of those positions because they were only put there after 9/11. The FBI was never top-heavy before, even under J. Edgar Hoover. Mm-hmm. So it's the most centralized it's ever been. Get rid of that, and then start going after all the woke lunatics in the nerve center of the FBI. That's a lot. Their general counsel's office has 300 lawyers. The FBI doesn't need that many, and so on down the line. It does. The human resources department is where all the DEI commissars went. So, weed that out. I'm sure he's going to be doing this. But one of the big things that's important is to restore the authority of the 56 field offices around the country to initiate investigations and cases, and don't have headquarters doing it from the center. That not even J. Edgar Hoover did that either. When he built the FBI, he was a super strong, extremely strong director. But he couldn't simply open up cases on people. That was done by the locals at the local levels in cities around the country. And it was done very carefully. And then allow the field office, the special agents in charge of each field office, to have direct access to the director like there used to be before. And that way you cut out the body of the bureaucracy of the Bureau.
Yeah. So decentralization, more agents in the field actually doing counterintelligence and rooting out foreign networks inside the United States would be I would love to see it be a really good start. I actually had an interaction once, and I told them, this happened to be an agent who was talking to me about me being threatened after they had raided somebody's apartment when I was involved in politics. And I asked him about the Socialist Rifle Association because that was what we were discussing, and he didn't even know there was a chapter in our city. And he said, well, how do you know? And I said, because they have a Facebook page. I mean, it was just some basic things, and it seemed to me not necessarily their fault, but that things have been so centralized that they really didn't have the freedom to go out there and be proactive in investigations against foreign adversaries and their proxies here in the U.S.
Right. I mean, yeah, it's probably not the agent's fault in the field. This is part of headquarters' fault because they're the ones who collect intelligence from field offices around the country, synthesize it, and determine what are the threat levels from which organizations. And you talk to a lot of agents, they don't know about the jihadist groups. They don't know about the communist groups. They don't know how Antifa is set up because they're looking at Latin Rite Catholics and school boards and J6 protesters.
Yeah, I saw how it was half, or maybe a little bit less than half of the agents were assigned just to looking into J6 instead of, I don't know, China or maybe some of the jihadi organizations here in the U.S. as well.
Yeah. Imagine the colossal, not just waste of taxpayer dollars. That's the least problem in this, but taking FBI agents by the thousands off their cases. I know personally some of them who were on child sex trafficking cases. They were investigating to bust them up. They were pulled off those felony cases, crimes against children, to do SWAT raids on people accused of misdemeanor charges. So this is the part of the politicization of the Bureau that has to be ripped out. If I was to advise the president and the attorney general and the FBI director, I would say Kash Patel should be the final FBI director. The place should be, it's run its course. It's become the Bud Light of law enforcement. It's not a respected, trusted brand anymore. And so let's divide it up in an orderly fashion, function by function. So you take the criminal investigation side and turn that over to the U.S. Marshals, which isn't that woke yet. And it was founded by the founding fathers. It's the only federal law enforcement agency that was.
Yep.
Take other elements and parcel them out elsewhere, and then have a standing strategic spy service, which we don't have. So the FBI counterintelligence people who are allowed to do their job, most of them do a good job, but the counterintelligence, they call it the pillar inside the FBI, is really politicized. This is where Peter Strzok came out of. It's also corrupted. This is where McGonigal, who was head of the Russian counterintelligence in the New York field office, biggest field office in America, he was in charge of hunting down the Russian spy networks in New York. And he got busted for taking money from Albanian businessmen, which were probably fronting for Russian oligarchs. And the FBI has not once said there might be a counterintelligence problem, that what if they were Russians trying to co-opt him? And then they treated it as a mere crime and not as a potential spy case.
Yeah. Well, when we come back from the break, I want to have a longer segment when we come back from the break. I want to talk about what it means to have a standing strategic spy agency, like that actually is looking out 50 years. And also, what about some of the restructuring that's happening in the DoD? When we come back from the break, J. Michael Waller, Senior Analyst for Center for Security Policy.
American business owners, you understand the power of TV. If you have a product that you want to sell to millions of like-minded Americans who value quality, hard work, and supporting the red, white, and blue, supporting Patriots is the perfect place. If you're ready to bring your product to a patriotic audience eager to buy American, then contact us today at supportingpatriots.com and secure your spot on Supporting Patriots. Let's build a stronger economy. When we buy American, we support our future.
I couldn't give anything a higher endorsement I would be remiss had I not include Cardio Miracle on my very short list of secrets.
It's the real deal. It's a real product. It's not another supplement.
I'm operating about 6 to 8 hours, and I've noticed that being on this Cardio Miracle has made a huge difference.
Since I started taking Cardio Miracle, about 8 months into it, the benefits have been fantastic.
You know, if I get hungry, then I just have a Cardio Miracle.
Not only is it safe, but it's necessary to take Cardio Miracle to stay well.
This let me sleep. It's showing up more energy, more get up and go, and it's all because of what this company does.
For me as a doctor, Cardio Miracle is a staple.
Cardio Miracle to me is hope in a glass.
To try Cardio Miracle for yourself and get a special fan discount, go to the host page right now and click the link for Cardio Miracle.
And we're back with our guest, J. Michael Waller, Senior Analyst for Center for Security Policy. So what does it mean to have a standing strategic spy agency, and what's the CIA doing?
Well, the CIA's job is to commit espionage abroad, meaning to spy on other countries outside our borders, and to synthesize that information into intelligence products that the president can use for decision-making, and then serve as an action arm for covert operations. So the CIA is not supposed to operate internally. The FBI has mainly a twofold job. On the one hand, it's a federal law enforcement agency, an investigative agency, to investigate crimes and collect evidence that can be stood up in court and subject to scrutiny by the judge and the jury and the public. But its counterintelligence function, its spy hunting function, is to go after foreign spies in this country, domestically here. That's a really important function. And to the extent that the FBI counterintelligence people are allowed to do their jobs, they work really hard at it. And you have a lot of really first-rate people in there. But that role expanded. So that's an intelligence, counterintelligence, countering foreign spies. You're not supposed to just find evidence so that you can arrest them. The other job is to co-opt them, to penetrate them, to turn them against their masters, to feed them with secret falsehoods that they would then send up the chain to their leadership to confuse and disrupt their leaders, especially the leaders of their spy service, so they can't operate as effectively against us. And then that's the strategic part of it. The FBI really doesn't do that because it can't, it's done it over its history, and it might be doing something now, but the way the career patterns work in the FBI since they were reorganized is that you can't stay on that job for very long, because if you're not promoted in a certain period of time and check all the boxes for your promotion, then you have to leave the FBI. So you lose that base of institutional knowledge of people who've just working these cases all their careers. A lot of guys really want to do that, but they're not allowed to. And this lets the bad ones get away.
I mean, does the United States really have a strategy for dealing with other countries, or is it just kind of changing all the time as we get a new president?
Yeah, they call it a strategy, but anybody can say they have a strategy. It doesn't make it a good one.
Right.
But if we're going to be, and they confuse in this case counterintelligence with security. Well, we'll just put up more secure hardware or software, more secure facilities and more secure checks. That's not going to do it. What you need to do is to have an offensive capability against these spies. Right now, it's run kind of like a fly swatting operation. We see a spy somewhere and we monitor him for a while and figure out his networks and so forth. Then we bust him and we either put him on trial on criminal charges, or we have him deported, or we swap him for our people abroad. That's not really solving the problem. If you have an infestation in your home, you're not just going to get rid of the pests that you see. You have to go right into the nest and rip out the whole thing. FBI is not doing that, and we don't have an institution in our government that does.
I mean, talking about the cartels, I mean, just even crime syndicates inside the United States, it seems like over the last 20 years that we've just been run over here in the United States as more and more of our adversaries have infiltrated deeper and deeper into the highest levels of the U.S. government. And I don't think that's hyperbole. I think that's actually happened. What is your thought on that, and how do we root it out? Yeah.
It's very hard to root out if some of them are decision makers. So if you're a foreign intelligence officer and you're running an operation and you're trying to recruit people to work for you, Some of them will do it willingly. They've got a grudge, or they've got a score to settle, or they just want something interesting in their life, or they need some extra money. Some of them do it because they have a beef against the system. They have an ideological axe to grind. And this is where DEI comes in so perniciously in the FBI and CIA, because if you can imagine, people sworn to uphold the Constitution and enforce the law and to defend us against foreign spies who don't believe in our constitutional system or our founding principles. They think that Judeo-Christian tradition and everything around it on which our laws are based are really evil. They think it was written by white men to create a permanent patrimony to repress everybody else. So imagine you have officers of the law, federal law, who think this way. So you'll get some people. This is why these types used to be screened out, but DEI has just brought them in droves. But this is what foreign intelligence officers look for. Who inside the FBI or elsewhere inside the federal government or private industry, who has this beef against the American system? How can we exploit that? So some of those people will collaborate with foreign intelligence services knowingly. But some of the greatest effectiveness is when they're enlisted or influenced and they have no knowledge of this. They can even deny it. They might have the finest motives. How is anybody going to know if what you're thinking and saying and doing as an official or as an executive is really being influenced by a hostile foreign intelligence service?
Right. And we I think overcomplicate it, but it really is this simple. It really is this simple. Some people have motives that can be exploited, and they are being exploited right now. And some of them are elected officials, and we just need to be honest about it and have the conversation. How are we going to prevent this going into the future? Which, I mean, brings up the DOD and the whole U.S. military. The same thing is true there. I was just reading before we came on that 55,000 DOD employees may be on the chopping block as they pare down. And some people are saying, well, that's going to affect our readiness. And I say, yeah, maybe it'd be the opposite.
What are we going to do? Have more and more and more people doing work that doesn't matter, wasting our resources? Part of it is, see, any bureaucracy is going to grow. That's just the nature of it. And every bureaucracy justifies that growth and all the people being employed there. And they become fat and lazy. They become inefficient. They become slow. They end up being unready, not ready.
So how do we root it out of the U.S. military? Because there are foreign actors that have, this elite capture program. Let me back up. The elite capture program has not just targeted, what we would say is senior level officials, but also mid-level leaders as well in the U.S. military. How do we root this out? What's a good strategy to root this stuff out of the system?
Some of the dangerous enemy spies in our history have been sergeants.
Exactly.
Generals. So it will take a very long time to root out. Part of it is to create a mindset of not just watchfulness, watch for suspicious behavior, because that's not going to do it. The really good spies aren't going to have any suspicious behavior. Look at Robert Hanssen, the worst Soviet spy maybe in American history. The FBI, I knew Robert Hanssen. He was a conservative. He had a large family. He had a wonderful wife. They were devout Catholics and just solid patriotic Americans. Yet he was the worst spy in FBI history.
Kash Patel does have his work cut out for him, doesn't he?
Yeah. This is one of the dangers when people like us think, well, it's only left-wingers who would be spies.
Right.
So, Kremlin sympathizers or Chinese communists. No, anybody can become a traitor. And some of the traitors have been conservative, pro-American, patriotic people on the outside, but they're some of the worst. So we're really going to suffer a lot as a country if we just think it's going to be people from the other party or the other side of the political fence. And our enemies exploit this.
They do. And we need to be very clear that money, ideology, compromise, coercion, ego, revenge, these are all prime motivators that can be exploited. And you're right, it doesn't have to be somebody's particular political ideology that they're espousing publicly, but they could have secrets that, again, our foreign adversaries may know, or even our internal adversaries may know, but we may not.
Yeah. So how do you get into a mentality to fix this? It's going to be really hard because, first of all, you have to have a standing counterintelligence service. This is what I proposed in Big Intel. Cash has even said something to that effect on his own about having a separate counterintelligence service, because you cannot have the FBI on the one hand being law enforcement, where you're collecting evidence according to rules of procedure. Everything has to be legally and properly collected to stand up to scrutiny in court, and you have to allow the defense to see the evidence that's being used against them. That's the rules of evidence. Rules of intelligence are much different. So with the FBI becoming a law enforcement, or let's say a domestic intelligence service with law enforcement powers, that's what it's become since 9/11. That's dangerous, because with intelligence, oftentimes there are no rules. You get information however you need to get it. And if you can't get it inside the United States because you need a warrant for it, then you go to our allied countries like Britain or Australia or Canada or Israel or someplace else, and you say, can you spy on these people? We cannot. And it's all on the side. It's not, none of this is written down. It is legal for foreign intelligence services to share intelligence with us. It happens all the time. We need it. So when the Brits spy on citizens here, for example, and share that intelligence with the FBI, they're doing the domestic spying to help the FBI circumvent federal law. That kind of thing has to stop. But so you get the politicization part. You have the impunity part too, because no one's ever been punished for this. Then you have the oversight part, because there really hasn't been a hardcore investigation of the FBI since 1976 by Congress. Prior to 1976, there were not any either. So in J. Edgar Hoover's 48 years, there was never a real oversight hearing of the FBI. So the FBI's just gotten away with whatever it's wanted for all of these years, and Congress just keeps giving them more and more and more in the budget because the Bureau is doing supposedly such a great job. It does a great job in a lot of things, but a lot of times, if you just follow at FBI on X and follow their field offices, you'll see they're taking credit for cases that they didn't even work on.
They didn't do.
The state police pulled over somebody who had, 10 kilos of meth in his trunk, and he was bringing it from Ohio to Indiana. So that's an interstate crime. FBI comes in because they have a lab to make sure it's really meth. Had nothing to do with the bus, but then they come out and they take the credit for breaking the case and then another press release when the guy is convicted. And then they go to Congress and say, look at us, look at what we're doing nationwide. And the local authorities, for the most part, they're intimidated by this. They're not going to say, hey, wait, you guys didn't do anything. We busted that case.
Right. But they don't want to rock the boat necessarily. So
and they're afraid of it. Because imagine also they get stuff from Homeland Security. Local and state police and the sheriffs get gear and training and prestige from Department of Homeland Security as well as from the FBI. But the FBI, no federal agent can work at the state and local level and enforce state and local laws unless they're deputized by the authorities in that locality. And it's a matter of habit where most sheriffs around the country will routinely deputize federal agents to run investigations in their states that are really the purview of the states or the localities to do. So they're deputizing federal agents to come and even act improperly at the state level. So they're empowering this big central machine. Sheriffs have a right to say, no, we're not going to help you because what we think you're doing is unjust. So we're not going to be your eyes and ears.
Well, I want to give you an opportunity to talk about Big Intel, because it looks like Cash's book and your book are being sold together now as a pack almost. So if you could, where can people go find it and buy it?
Well, the best place is on Amazon, because you'll get the best buy on Amazon, and they're not so politicized like they are at Barnes and Noble, where they canceled my book. So you can get it on Barnes and Noble online, but it's almost twice the price as Amazon, because they don't want the book to sell. Barnes and Noble made the corporate decision over a year ago not to carry Big Intel in the stores, and it's Regnery publishers. They carry a lot of Regnery titles, but they made that corporate decision. You might find it in a Barnes and Noble store if a manager wants to carry it or if customers ask for it, but your best place is Amazon. And then if you borrow audiobooks from libraries that have the Libby app and they carry that, you can borrow it for free on Libby.
Awesome. Well, J. Michael Waller, thank you. It's always an enjoyable conversation. Absolutely fascinating. I hope you get a phone call maybe in the next 72 hours. Blessings to you and keep up the fight.
Thank you. You too.
All right. J. Michael Waller, Senior Analyst for Strategy for the Center for Security Policy, centerforsecuritypolicy.org. And check out his book, Big Intel. And I'm not kidding. Like right now, it's a recommendation that you buy his and Cash's book on Amazon together. Probably give you some insight what's about to happen here in the next 90 days. And you heard it here on Patriot Radio. So what can you do? You know what? Buy a book and give it to your local sheriff. You want to guess what the title is of that book? Big Intel. Hand it to your local sheriff and your local county prosecutor. Ask them what their experience perhaps is with prosecuting cases across state line and how it might be made better. And then put that online on Doge. And by the way, if you haven't seen it, Doge is broken down with various departments for people to engage, whistleblowers and people with ideas. So why don't we become the government of the people, by the people, and for the people again, and share those ideas? And also locally bless our local elected officials with knowledge, which a lack of knowledge, people perish. But when you have knowledge, I would say the people rejoice. As we end the episode today, I do not see any quick update from Kash Patel's site yet. We're going to stay tuned, but you can always follow us on Telegram, patriotradio.us/Telegram, to keep up with breaking news and real-time intelligence analysis. Also, perhaps you in this time are saying, you know what? I do want to pursue God. Perhaps you are at that point where you want to give your life to Jesus Christ. We have a team waiting to talk to you about that. patriotradio.us/salvation. And they will walk you through the process of walking into your destiny with Jesus Christ. This is Matt Shea. Thank you so much for joining me on Patriot Radio today. May God bless all of you. He is making this generation truly the greatest one. A great day here in America. The awakening is here. Keep up the fight.